Welcome back to the Mid.Life.Artist Podcast. I am your host, Brandy Reynolds, and I'm so grateful that you're here. This week's guest is Anastacia Drake, who is a fine artist and a muralist based in Kansas, and she shares so much juicy good stuff about her journey to becoming a gallery represented artist and a well-known muralist that is so applicable to your own art journey, and I know you are just going to love our talk today. If you are new here, she is one of the many wonderful artists that I have interviewed. Please feel free to check out the previous episodes, and regardless, I hope you all will like and subscribe and share this channel with your family and friends. Without further ado, please help me welcome Anastacia Drake. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. If you can tell I'm excited, it's because I've got an old friend here, Anastacia Drake. She was also, if you've listened to any previous episodes, I've mentioned an old message board like way back in the day. Anastacia is another so lucky find from that message board, and we've gotten really close over the years. So Anastacia is an artist, a beautiful, fine artist located in Kansas City, Missouri. Anastacia, say hi to everybody. Tell them where they can find you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. First off, Randy, so excited to be here. You can find all of my artwork on my art studio. It's AnastaciaDrake.com because that's a tricky one. It's Anastacia with a C. So ANASTACIA Drake.com. Lots of A's in there. So there you go.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. And so, like I said, you were like the first artist I saw, like a real person artist. Like you were just a person like me. You had a job or were going to school or whatever it was, but you were also like, you were making art, like real art that you were selling to people so that they can hang above their couch. And it just had never occurred to me. Like I definitely had those ideas of like, oh, you have to have this pedigree, or you have to have this education, or you have to have this, like, I didn't know you could just be like a normal person and be like, oh, I'm just going to create art and try to sell it. So I'm wondering if you could kind of talk about how you got started being creative and painting and
Sure. So I grew up in the country in Kansas, and I didn't know being an artist was actually a thing. Like I'd never been in an art gallery. I didn't know that was such a different world for me. And so I had sort of started it was something I had always done. I just didn't know it was a thing. Like I thought everyone could do it. So I remember I was that little nerdy kid in school I would finish my math homework or my English homework, and I'd be done before everyone else. So then I would like create designs up the page. And I had these teachers who were like, nice art. I was like, thanks, I was bored. And then as I got older, I would take magazines, and I would take a sketchbook, and I would take a magazine and I would literally sketch it from front to back, like the people, like everything. I just thought that's what you did. I had I would say a pretty traumatic, a little bit violent childhood, and I would get really, really bad migraines. And I found that drawing was an escape for me. And I was essentially doing art therapy to myself and didn't realize it. So that was my escape. And so I spent many, many hours doing it, thought this was normal. Fast forward, I think I was 19, and I had moved to Hawaii just as I need to go find myself. I don't know, what am I doing with my life, sort of thing. And I was sketching a little girl on the beach, and somebody came up and offered me money. And I remember like being really shocked by it. And I was like, well, you can just have it. Like, why would you offer me money for this? Right. And then it happened again. And I was like, well, somebody actually said, can you do a picture? At this time I was sketching. So I started out sketching with charcoal, and somebody asked me to do a commission of their grandson. And I literally didn't even have like a sketchbook. So I think for like a sketchbook and a set of pencils, I did a drawing of their grandson. So I was totally, completely clueless. Never told anyone I was an artist. I didn't know I was an artist. And then fast forward a couple more years, somebody had given me a bunch of paints that they didn't want, and I was afraid of them, didn't know what to do with them. And then I had one of those. It was acrylic. Yeah,
Okay,
it was
so
a
they're not even oils, not even
no.
which scare like even artists or can be
Yeah,
like
yeah,
very
no,
intimidating.
I never messed with paints. Pencils was my thing, right? And so I remember coming home from work, and it was one of those days that's just so epically bad that you hate everything. And I needed a release. And for some reason, I pulled these paints out of the closet, and all I had was some old mat board, I think. And I didn't have any brushes. So I used a butter knife, and I literally made a painting, and it was wonderful. Like, I lost track of time, and I got over all my stuff, and I was in such a great place, and I put it all back in the closet. So this went on for a couple years. I would just have a bad day, pull it out, do some stuff, play with it, because I didn't have these sets of boundaries or rules with art that a lot of people get in art school, right? So I had a lot of permission to play and kind of do whatever I wanted. And then fast forward
Well,
again a
and
couple
also,
years.
by the way,
Yes.
a butter knife is not a super usually user-friendly tool to use with acrylics, like specifically acrylics. Like you actually made your life harder. So
Yeah, well, and that ended up being one of my most famous paintings, like
yes,
over the years.
yes.
So yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I just needed to like create, right? So I had later I was dating somebody and who had taken some art classes in college, and he had snuck into the closet one day or something and found a bunch of my art and was like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's just stuff I do on the side. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, I've taken so many art classes and I can't do any of this stuff. And I was like, okay, don't tell anybody, like, I'm a total closet artist. I'm not an artist. I don't even, that's not a thing. And then one day he submitted one of my pieces into a show, and I got accepted. And I cried and cried and cried like a baby because I was terrified. I was like, they're going to know I'm not an artist. Like, they're going to know. And out of 150 pieces, 5 sold and mine sold. And he was like, see, you are an artist. And I'm like, don't tell people that. They don't know, So I just had imposter syndrome so bad. I didn't know any artists. I didn't know what being an artist meant. I didn't know anything. I didn't know technique. It was just something that I did that brought me a lot of joy. And so that was sort of my launching off point. I think about that time was when I met you through the forum. And I had just then started showing some artwork just because he was kind of pushing me outside my comfort zone. And I think I remember being like, he says that I'm an artist, but I don't think I'm an artist. And then the feedback I was getting, and people were like, no, you're an artist. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, no, don't call me that because I'm not an artist, but that was sort of the launching off point. And I think imposter syndrome's a big thing for most artists, whether they are educated in art or not. I think it's something that almost all artists can relate to, but that was really my jumping off point. And then to kind of when it really shifted for me, I was 25 and I was misdiagnosed with cancer, and I was working a
Wow, I don't
corporate
think I
job.
knew that. Okay.
Yeah, I was working a corporate job that was literally killing me. I was working 60 plus hours a week. And I was misdiagnosed with cancer, and it sent me sort of into a spiral. And I was like, is this what I want to be doing with my life? And how do I handle this? And I just lost a friend to cancer, and I just lost my grandfather to cancer. And this all happened within like a month.
Oh
And
God.
it was just too much. I couldn't process, I couldn't process it at all. And I sort of, in that spiral, turned my entire living room into an art studio. And thankfully, the person I was dating at the time was like, you need to channel this because you're a wreck right now.
Was it the same guy who had originally?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it sounds like
So,
wherever he is in the world, it didn't work out for whatever reason. He at least like we can all give him a round of applause for encouraging you with your.
yeah, absolutely. I give him that all day long. And so I did. I mean, I literally just painted and painted and painted, and I painted out the pain and the fear and the everything. And that's when it all sort of shifted for me. And I was like, it was healing me.
Mhm.
And then watching people connect to my work, and it was healing them. And that's sort of what sent me down the artist path after that.
Oh, that's really. And do you think this imposter syndrome was just based out of You just had no frame of reference for it
Yeah.
growing up? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. I had moved to a town where, well, the University of Kansas has a big art program.
Okay.
And so once I had finally started being around artists, I just didn't fit what I thought the mold was, right? And then they would talk with their language that I didn't
Right.
have. And
Right.
I just felt so inferior because I didn't have the words. I didn't know. I mean, the first time I ever did an artist residency, I think I had the least amount of education, but almost more um, showings or exhibitions than a lot of the people there. And I remember them telling me, they're like, oh, well, here's the rules. Like, you can't just walk into a gallery and hand them your portfolio, and you have to go through this whole process. And I was like, really? Because that's what I've done every single time. Like, I just didn't have the rules and I didn't know the rules. And so they're all like, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, that's what I did, you know? So yeah, I just didn't have the frame of reference to know right from wrong. So I think that worked in my favor, but I
100%.
didn't know any artists. I couldn't ask anyone advice. And when I did try to talk to artists, I felt like I couldn't even speak the same language. So,
You know what's interesting? Do you look back now and go, I didn't have a word for it, but this was what I was doing. Like, I didn't understand what I was doing was a technique, but I was developing a technique, right? Like you didn't.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So when I was approached to start teaching art for an art center, and I was like, why would you want to hire me? Because I'm not art educated. So I actually found the terminology and I was trying to teach people how to paint and how to do these things. So what I was doing with that butter knife is actually a technique called sgraffito. And I didn't know that. And so I was just over here playing, right? And then I'm like, oh, so when I very first started painting or teaching painting, the classes there was so much trauma involved, as in like I would get these people who really wanted to do art, but some point in their life, third grade, somebody said, you're a terrible artist. And so they never touched it again, or there's a right or wrong way. And so I found this class full of very paralyzed people. Like, they're like, but you haven't told us the right way to do it yet. I'm like, there's no right way. And it was like, okay, I need to get them to step outside of their box. So I literally took all the brushes away. And I brought in
Yep.
Q-tips and screwdrivers and butter knives and I'm like, and now we're just going to have fun and play. And after 2 hours, they were like, wait, class is over already? You know, and the amount of hugs that I got just because people were like, thank you for letting me play again. They're like, somebody told me I was awful. And that left such a deep impression on me that I was scared to even touch it. And I'm like, okay, that's my job coming from the world of being self-taught, is to help others find that creative side without and for those who could afford or got the education, wonderful, I love that for you. But that wasn't my journey. And I love having those conversations with people who have more education than me. But there's a whole demographic of people out there that are afraid of art. And I feel like that is where my place belongs, is with those people, and allowing them to get close to art in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think learning the language helped? Or do you think now that you started in a place of like, I'm not an artist because I don't understand these words, this language, this box that they're putting in, or these parameters, and then you learn it
Right.
whatever way. Do you feel like it helped, or do you feel like, you know what, I probably didn't need the language? Like, it was probably good that I didn't have the language.
Not sure I needed it. Honestly, it has helped me in some ways with being more open-minded to other types of art. Before, when I was like, I don't get it, like that's just, everybody has that. And I look at something, I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. Now I can go, okay, I might not get it, but I understand the technique behind it or how difficult it was
Okay.
to do.
Right.
So I do appreciate that side of it, but I also am not sure I ever needed that language, or yeah, I'm not sure I needed it. And I'll be honest. my stuff now is very textural. You've
Yes.
seen
Oh,
it.
gorgeously
Like
so. Gorgeously so.
thank you. I kind of figured out how to sculpt with paint. And
Yes.
that
Yes.
all came out of working with a little girl who had a really rare form of arthritis called Behçet's. She was 12. And there was a program called Art for Arthritis. And again, I didn't really I was new to the Kansas City area, didn't know a lot of people. There's an art institute here, so I was having trouble getting my foot in the door because everybody's like, "Oh, you didn't go to the institute, okay," And so I just didn't know where to go. And somebody somehow, the Arthritis Foundation got my name, and they approached me about working on a project called Art for Arthritis with a child, and then essentially you work together, you create a project, and then they auction off the artwork and all the money goes towards the Arthritis Foundation. I was like, oh yeah, this will be fun. I'll finger paint with a kid. This will be great. And then they pulled me aside and they were like, well, we gave you our roughest case. And I'm like, what? So I'm not finger painting with a child. So essentially, it was a 12-year-old girl who was going blind from arthritis in her eyes, a real rare form of arthritis.
Wow.
And
Wow.
they had pumped her full of steroids to keep the little bit of sight that she had as they're teaching her how to live as a blind person. So one, she was a little African American girl, lower income. She's 12. Being a 12-year-old girl is hard in itself, right? And then they pumped her full of steroids, so she had put on 100 pounds. So she's overweight, she's going blind, she hates her life, she hates everything about her life. And I'm like, oh man, like how can I make a difference? And I met with her several times and she just didn't want to talk about it. Like she wants to be a normal girl. She's tired of talking about it. And so finally one day I said, okay, here's the deal. Her name was Naisha. And I said, okay, here's the deal, Naisha. I said, this is your voice. This canvas is your voice. And this is going to go up in front of everybody. And right now you get to tell people what having arthritis means to you. And she said, okay, well, it's a roller coaster. And I said, okay, great. This is where we're going to start from. So I drew out a roller coaster. And she said, I wake up in the morning and I feel fine and I'm up here. And then I get these massive headaches and I go down, I take my medicine, I come up and then the kid's making fun of me and I go down. And she's like, my whole day's a roller coaster. And I'm like, we can, that's a great place to start. And as we're talking and working through this, she looks at me and she smiles and she says, can we have the kids making fun of me fly off the page? And I'm like, yes, we can, So like all of a sudden, like there's that connection, that therapeutic connection, right? And so we do get to talking and she said, I always wanted to be an artist, but I'll never get to be an artist. And I'm like, well, really? Why? Tell me why. And she goes, well, I have vision problems and I'll be blind. And I was like, well, did you know Van Gogh and Monet both had vision problems? And she's like, I didn't know that. She wouldn't have been able to see like 5 feet away, but she could see if it's like right here. And so I took some Van Gogh and Monet paintings and I got a projector and I projected them giant onto a wall. And she was like, that makes me so happy. And that's what I want people, that's what I wish I could make people feel. And I said, well, you can, and here's what we're going to do. So she wanted to do a landscape. And she literally nose pressed to the canvas was drawing out the landscape, but then she couldn't see it to paint it. So I was sitting there thinking, okay, how do I make this accessible to her? And I just took a hot glue gun and I traced everything she did with the hot glue gun. And then I set the colors around the canvas and told her where things were, and she painted it. And when we took it to the auction, we called it The World Through Naisha's Eyes. And we asked people to touch it, so they're now in her world. Yeah. And they could get that experience of living like her. And it ended up selling for $1,000. It went on tour. Some doctor bought it to show the therapeutic aspects of art in arthritis. And I remember her sitting there crying and she goes, I knew it was pretty, but I didn't know I could make anything so pretty. And that was just so impactful, right? I mean, such a great experience. But what else I took away from that, and we got it all night long, was watching people interact with her painting because they were touching it. And people in general, I think, are afraid of art because they don't understand it. And all night we were watching people touch it and then crying and then hugging us. And they're like, thank you for letting me touch it. And so a lot of my work, I mix varnish in with the paint, and almost all of my work I let people touch, and I get hugged constantly. Like, people are constantly like, thank you for, I've always wanted to do that. And it's opening up for me, it's opening up some doors to people where they're afraid of art, and I just want to break down those barriers. And so really that's what it's been for me, because that's what it was for me, right? Like, I was afraid of it. I don't know that world. You're afraid of what you don't know. And so inviting people to interact with the art it's I don't know, it's something I absolutely love to do.
Well, and also think about, like, you can't go to the Louvre, you can't go to an art museum and touch the art. Like, in fact, it's very, like, you, not only is it behind glass, not only is it behind glass, but then there's a thing right there and you can't go past the thing, and like, it's very like, and then to be
I stepped in too close just looking for brush strokes, and they pulled guns. Like, they were like, there's no messing around. Alarms are going on. I was like, I was just trying to look at the brush strokes.
Yes,
like
100%. And then, like, when people can touch it, I imagine they feel like this is I understand this texture. Like, I can see it now. Like, and it just makes it real for them in a really impactful way. Thank you for sharing that story. That's really impactful, and thank you for sharing that. You had mentioned art residencies just a second ago, and that is one of the things I wanted to talk about, because you also were the first person I saw that went after. Again, we're talking about all these preconceived notions. I think I'd maybe heard the term art residency, and I assumed it was something that was like bestowed on the like elite or something. And so your process, you actually like seeing your process in applying for them, like you actually applied for them. And I was wondering if you can talk about not so much the logistics of like the application process, unless you would like to, but more about like, what you liked about an art residency, what you were surprised about, what you didn't like, and just sort of the experience of art residencies. And I'd like to start with like maybe like where, some key art residencies that you've done that you'd maybe, Italy comes to mind. I know you were in Italy for a while.
Okay, so my very first art residency was actually in Hungary, in Budapest, and it was through the Hungarian Multicultural Center. I didn't know, again, that art residencies was a thing. I think I was like 28. I have a marketing background, so I know how to make things look pretty, right? Like putting packages together and marketing myself. And I was 28, and being from Kansas, I thought, I'm going to leave the country. I'm going to go do all these wonderful things and backpack the world. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at 28. And to me, that's barreling down the road to 30, right? And I am like, what am I doing with my life? I'm never going anywhere. I'm never doing anything. And so I wanted to travel, and I started doing research on the internet. And I think I just put in like art plus travel. Art residencies started popping up. And I was like, wait, this is a thing? And so then I started really, they're all very different. Some will pay you to go. Some will give you a stipend while you're there. Some are a week, some are a month, some are a year. They're all very individual. So you have to see what works for you. My first one, I had no idea what I was doing. I applied and I got in, and that was sort of the kickoff for me. Like, I still wasn't calling myself an artist, right? I was like, I put together a pretty package. And then I went to Budapest, and I met all these like almost all of them were like university art professors, and some of them were famous, and I didn't know who they were, and they're like, you don't know who that guy is? I'm like, I had no idea, and again, it was, they were trying to tell me, oh, you can't do that and you can't do this. And I was like, yeah, I can. But what was really cool is you get to see all these different people from all different backgrounds all over the world. And you get to collaborate and ask questions and see their processes, and then take some of that for yourself, right? And watch your work develop. And that's what I love about residencies. After the Budapest one, I was sort of like, so what do I do with my life now? Like, I don't want to go back to what it was. And so I found one in southern Italy, and I applied, and I won that one. So I went to southern Italy, and it was a completely different sort of residency. Budapest was very structured. It was a very Like we had schedules and public art talks and meeting gallery owners and doing all of these things, which was great. But then Italy was pretty much you're here for 2 weeks to create and you can do whatever you want. There's nothing. And that threw me off balance a little bit because I went from being super structured to you can sit up and listen to the poets until 3 a.m. and drink wine, and then everybody sleeps till noon. And if you want to create today, you can. And if you don't have to. And there's all these different people from all over the world. So that one, it took me a couple of days to acclimate. And then kind of got into the groove of it and again, walked away with some different techniques, some different ideas. I had done something I'd never done there, which was a sculptural project. I never got, art installations before. I never really understood them most of the time. Just because I don't have that education. So I didn't get it. And then this particular art residency was an artist couple who basically opens up their second home to all these artists, and it's on an olive grove. And the first year they did the residencies, they had all the artists go out and plant an olive tree. And so I went around and I picked a branch from each, and they're very willowy and long. And I picked a branch from each olive tree, and then I sort of took our Native American culture and I wove a dream catcher of sorts out of it. And then I had all of the artists write something on a charm, a dream for this place onto it. And so it really pushed, I wasn't a sculpt, like I'd never done anything. I hadn't even imagined it. But I remember like little girls from the community coming and helping me like weave the stuff together. And, you know, it's just it's that sense of community. Yeah. That you get at a residency. You can get some that are very independent and isolating. Some people like that. I liked the community aspect of it because I feel like I can learn so much from other people. So being able to take that away. But yeah, there's tons of opportunities out there if somebody is interested. I think the website's residencies.org. And it has tons and tons of them listed. So that's a great place to look.
Was there anything that, and just your personal opinion, I'm not asking for any tea, but was there anything that you don't love about the art residency, either the process or the traveling? I always like to hear sort of like the broad perspective, like what worked and what didn't.
Sure. You really kind of have to know what you're getting into. So ask a lot of questions. If you see that other artists have done them, ask questions. I did one in Bali. Bali was phenomenal. The organizers were awful. What I didn't realize was the organizers were individuals and they were really, I think, using the artists to fund their independent things. Like one was working on their graduate project, and he basically was wanting us to serve as his like guinea pig, and we didn't know that going in. I should have just done a little more research. So in that sense, I kind of had to break off a little bit. Like, I mean, I was still part of the group, but I wasn't getting out of it what I thought I was promised, which was a lot of cultural stuff. So then I had to kind of go search for it. They're definitely, I mean, you don't want to end up at a residency thinking you're going to get community and you're isolated in a cabin out in the woods for 2 weeks. You know, like there's very...
there's one I remember finding it when I lived in Oregon. It's like specifically like that's the idea is you go to this cabin on the coast for I think 2 weeks or a month. And the whole idea is you're there by yourself to really immerse yourself in the obviously gorgeous coastline. And then you create art based on that. So yeah, I can see like you might want to like if you want community, make sure like other people are coming.
Right. Yeah, and make sure it's a place that you're comfortable. I mean, we had one lady in Bali who just she wasn't comfortable. She wasn't happy, and she was like, "It's too hot," and And it's like after a while, no one wanted to be around her. And we're like, you came to Bali in the middle of the summer. What did you expect? Like Bali is a tropical environment. If you're used to, sometimes they're not the most comfortable. A lot of other countries don't use air conditioning. That's something to think about. So those are those things. I like it because I like different cultures. I like being pushed out of my comfort zone. But there's definitely been times where I was like, what am I doing here? And how did I get in this situation? And I'm just going to try to make the best out of it.
So here's a question. So I have certainly had some really bad experiences hiking or in the mountains, that it's one of those, like, you look back on it and it's like, oh, that was an amazing experience. Is it kind of the same? Can it kind of be the same thing there, where you're like, once you get away from it, you get a shower and like a good meal, you're like, oh, I see how epic that was? Or is it just like, no, this still
No, I think it's similar in that way. Like some of the worst experiences end up becoming the best experiences, right? Like I remember the one in Bali, I would say, was probably the hardest one for me. And at one point, I think I had called my husband and I was just like, I'm done. Like, I'm just leaving. Like, I'm just going to go get a hotel somewhere else. I'm done with this residency. They don't have their shit together. Like I was just like, I am out. And he knows me so well. And he is the calmness in my world. Right. And he's like, I think I hear you, but I think that maybe you shouldn't run away, because sometimes you can be good at that. And I think that, yes, it's very uncomfortable for you, but I think you could learn something from it. So literally just kind of talking me down a little bit. And then I was like,
probably
fine, I'll listen to you for tonight. And then I had a good sleep and I was like, okay, this is bearable. What am I? And then, yeah, I had such an amazing experience. I met some really great people. Would I go back there? Yes. Would I do it with the same organization or that group? No. But he totally called me out. He was like, maybe you could learn something from this, even though it sucks this second. I'm like, you're not the best mate.
Go Carl. Go.
Right? He's
So
my little.
I wanted to kind of switch focus a little bit. There is, as we all know, we're inundated with social media, and I sometimes get the sense, sometimes blatantly, sometimes subversively, of like this idea that you have to have sort of this cohesive look and style as an artist. Especially if you take any sort of like how to promote yourself on social media, like one of the things is like, it's gotta like have this like general, like cohesive thing coming together. And I just wanted to get your opinion, not only as an extremely, informed and experienced artist, but also you've done art marketing and you've helped with that sort of things. You have a marketing background. I would love your take on that.
Okay, this is loaded. I'm going to say yes and I'm going to say bullshit. Okay. So if you look at my work, I'm all over the place, right? I'm like, oh, shiny. I'm going to try this technique now. And I'm going to switch it up. That really has not held me back. Anybody you talk to says, yes, you have to have a cohesive body of work. I'm going to say it depends what you want to do with it. Okay. If you're going to go to galleries, then you have to know that your work fits within that gallery. Therefore, you do need a cohesive body of work to show them, this is my work, this is what I do, and it fits in with what you do. If you're going to do an art market, no, do whatever the hell you want to do. It doesn't matter, because your art's going to speak to different people. It's going to speak to everybody. I think ultimately it depends what you want to do. For new artists or emerging artists, I would say don't put yourself so in a box, because then you're not going to learn anything. The more you play, the more you experiment, if you feel like you need a theme, go. I have a Flower Girl series right now that I'm working on. And
oh my God, it's my favorite series you've done.
It's mine too. And it's literally just, I don't even show full faces. They're just half women or girl faces, but I'm trying to do all the mood out of flowers and color. Yeah. And I really did those for me, thinking no one would buy them. And they've been selling as fast as I'm making them, which blows my mind. Because I think people are
I'm not
connecting to them.
surprised. Sorry, I'm very
And
unsurprised by this information.
well, really, what has happened is I used to do a lot of figurative work, and portraiture work, and then I love my textured stuff, and I have come to a place where I'm starting to put the two together. And so, even though over this time I have all these different styles, I'm now starting to put these different styles together and creating something new. So, for a while, when I was really down the marketing rabbit hole, I have my textured landscapes and flowers. And then I had farm animals. I grew up on a farm. I love painting farm animals. They make me happy. Everybody who buys them loves them. I love them. But those are not the same. Like I can't even show them in most places at the same time. And so I actually created 2 different websites for those. And that worked for a long time. And now I've gotten to the point where I just don't care anymore. And I just put them all on one. And I'm like, I'm not managing all of this. But I think, I have 6 galleries that rep me now. They don't care. Like they know what they like of mine. They've told me what they like of mine, and that's what I give them, right? But that doesn't mean I stop giving this other style any attention. So I would say yes and no, depending on what you want to do with your art. If you want gallery representation, if you want to go places that want to look at portfolios, then you do need a sort of body or a cohesive body of work. But if you're just doing your own thing, if you're doing art markets, if you're selling to friends, if you're all over the place like I am, then just do whatever you want.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Getting back to galleries, and so getting back to the point you made, which I'm glad we kind of swept back around to galleries. You had talked about, like, people would be like, you can't do that. You can't just go up to a gallery and show your work. And you had also said that, like, for a long time you would not claim that you were an artist. When you were going to these galleries with, like, here's my, I don't even know what to call this, my, like, pretty things, how are the galleries receiving that? Were they like, did you ever hear from them sort of like, oh, we're looking at a message that you weren't an artist, or were you getting the message that you were an artist and like they were taking you seriously, or a mix maybe?
Yes. My very first gallery that I approached, I didn't really know that much about the gallery. I had went in it, I saw some art I liked, and I was like, well, this is cool. Hey, maybe they would want to hang my art. I had put together a portfolio of my work. I walked in, I started talking to the manager, and I said, hey, I'm an artist. I was wondering if you're looking for new artists. And she's like, well, do you have any of your stuff? And I handed her my portfolio, and she was looking through it, and she's like, this is great. This is really great work. Where'd you go to school? And I said, oh, I'm self-taught. And she literally closed my portfolio and handed it back to me and goes, sorry, we don't have any place for you here. And I was just like, 2 minutes ago, you were like, I'm amazing. And now you don't have a place for me. So that, I didn't get up the nerve to approach anyone for a long time after that. I really took that as an insecurity of my own. Like, I'm not educated, I'm not as good. But then I started looking around and I was like, well, the people that have the education they haven't even shown in as many places as me. They haven't done as much. Some of these art residencies with these quite famous artists had never sold a piece. And I'm like, what? Like, I make my living doing this, like, and you've never sold a piece. And all these people, I think what gave me the confidence was all these people who were telling me I couldn't do it this way. Within a year, every single one of them called me and asked me how to make money with art. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm onto something. So that one was really hard for me when she kind of shut the door in my face, if you will. And I was like, ouch. And then, but I didn't listen. I just kept chugging along. And then I started selling my own stuff. I had another gallery I had approached at one time, and she was like, oh, and flowers don't sell. And they didn't want to sell. And I'm like, that's all I sell. Like, what? Flowers don't sell. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just
heard of Georgia O'Keeffe? Like, what? Have you heard of Monet? It's all flowers.
Right. So what I would want people to know is that I think art is so subjective. And if someone says no, that's their no, not your no. Okay. So that's one thing I will say, because fast forward, the gallery that the first gallery I'd ever stepped into, I remember walking in and just falling in love with everything in this place. It's in Lawrence, Kansas, and thinking, and this is before I'd ever shown my art, and I was like, man, these artists are amazing. Like, holy crap, you've made it when you can get in here. I hang and sell a lot in that gallery now. And I had literally just started up a conversation and said something with the owner one day. And I said, I'm an artist. And she said, really? Let me see your work. And I, of course, I have it on my phone, right, on my website, and I pull it up and I hand it to her. And she's like, would you want to sell here? And I was like, oh my God, yes, 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 1,000 times. I had a solo show. It did great. And so that was very validating for me. Like, ha ha ha, I might not have the background that some of these places are, but my work fits very well within that gallery. And I think many times when artists are starting to grow, we're just like, put our work anywhere. Right. I think you have to figure out where it fits, if that makes sense. Like some of those galleries just
makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something we don't look at. We're just looking at any opportunity to sell our art, right? But if you can find where it fits, where your people are, where your people hang out, it's going to sell. And so that's the trick, I think. But yeah, I've definitely had doors shut in my face. And then when you're going to art school, there's a whole process and letters and emails and blah, blah, blah. And I've just skipped all of that. And I usually just walk in with my phone. I'm like, I'm an artist. And every once in a while, they'll be like, one of my favorite galleries I'm in Arkansas. I had just walked in and the guy was trying to tell me about the technique, and he was the owner, not the artist. And I was like, actually, this is how he did it. And he goes, oh, do you know art? And I was like, yeah, I'm an artist. Oh, what do you do? And I showed him. And by the end of the day, I had a contract in hand, And so, yeah, I think you have to take opportunities when they're there.
And do you also think, and I'm just out of curiosity, do you think the gallery world has changed? Like, do you think they've shifted, or is it still very much like pedigree and education?
I think there's different kinds of galleries.
Okay.
So I think there is the high-end galleries where my stuff just doesn't work. They want the pedigree. They want to say you're someone famous. And then they're going to charge crazy amounts of money. I just don't even feel comfortable in those places. Like, I'm going to break something, right? Like, that's not me. For the right artist, that's great. But I'm more comfortable in like boutique galleries. I am comfortable in galleries who are very artist friendly and very about the artist. And they're the ones who are going to greet you no matter what you're wearing when you walk in the door. Where some of them, the higher end are like, oh, you can't afford it. We're just not going to bother with
Pretty woman you with like, what?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so,
some people aren't going to get that reference. Some of the people listening, it's Mid.Life.Artist. We're old.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I do. I think there's different kinds of galleries now. I think artists need to be careful. You need to, if you are interested in the galleries, I've had stuff stolen. I've shown up and galleries have just shut down and took my stuff. So I think if you're going to look at galleries, go do some research on them. See how long they've been established. See what kind of reputation they have. See if they carry similar work to yours. See what kind of artists they have in there. And then one gallery was interested in showing me, but I wasn't allowed to sell my work. This is art fairs on my own or any other galleries within like a couple 100 miles of that gallery. And I was like, absolutely not. Right. You're not going to limit me to such a small space. I get it. Like in Lawrence, out of respect, it's not a large town. I only show at one place there. That's out of respect. They didn't put any limitations on me, but they did ask, like, are you going to show anywhere else? And I was like, no, I won't do that, out of respect for you. And so when people are like, oh, I want an Anastacia Drake in Lawrence, Kansas, they know where to go, right? Like they're going to go to the one place. And I want that mutually beneficial relationship. And if it's somebody that I can't have a conversation with, if it's somebody who doesn't have a good reputation early on, I didn't know any better. You're just like, oh, you're going to let me hang my art? Great. And then they take all your money and close up shop and you're out of work.
Yeah.
So. We just have to be careful with that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for just being so transparent and just really sharing that insight. I think it's going to be so useful for a lot of, for anybody who's interested in doing art and isn't sure where to start or is really intimidated by that process. I want to switch a little bit and talk about murals. What I was really excited about this conversation that we've already had is like, you've done all these sort of like artist experiences that are like their own little cosmos. Like doing art markets is kind of its own thing. Art residencies is kind of its own thing. Galleries is kind of its own thing. It's all art, but it's all sort of like different mediums of art. And so how did you get into doing murals? Do you like them? Do you not like, I mean, they're so big.
They are big. I do like them. I love the interaction of the community with them. Like that's really fun for me. The first one I didn't know what I was doing, of course, right? Like I'll figure it out as I go. That's pretty much how my whole life has been. So someone knew I was an artist and they said, we've got this giant building. We have a grant for money. Would you want to be our designated artist if we get the grant? And I said, yes. What do I need to do? And so I had to do mock-ups. I worked with a committee and then we finally got it. I got the grant and then I had no idea what I was doing. So I'm online doing research. I'm talking to mural artists. I'm like, what do I do? I don't know. And I learned so much, so much. You learn by doing, right? So I didn't know the hotel that I was doing it on, and it was massive, has raked brick. I would charge a lot more now, knowing because there were all these little crevices, so you can't paint on it. So I had to prime it, which meant that I needed a spray gun. And I had planned to hand paint this whole thing, like with a roller. And so very quickly, I'm like, okay, switch gears. I'm going to go buy a spray gun and I'm spraying. And then it was a lot higher than I thought it was going to be. And so I'd never used a genie lift where I was at. I didn't even know about them. So I'm literally like, it's a farm town. So I literally had someone like bring their tractor out and pictures and hook up like this platform and like lift me into the air.
I love it.
So I'm painting off of it. Like you make it work. And it turned out amazing. But I learned so much. And so like when I would do it completely different now. In the contract, I didn't stipulate how many redrafts I would do. And after like 40, I was like, I'm not doing any more for you. Like, you know what? Figure out what you want and then come talk to me. Because I was like, I'm not getting paid for any of this, right? This is just to submit the grant. I've been approached. I'm working on some possible opportunities, you know, in the future to do more. But I'm like, okay, I need to put the rental for a genie lift or a skyjack in there, you know, like, and I know what to look for this time versus last time I was sort of just figuring it out. So I wouldn't discourage anybody. Just know it's within your realm and that you can figure it out if you're going to go for it.
I just want to bring this up. So the girl who was like, I'm not an artist, hide these. Can you look back now and go like, okay, this is also a loaded question. Like I'm definitely a like, I'll figure it out as I go sort of person. And I am like that. I've done some human design work and it turns out that that's just how I'm wired. Like I can't do things the other way. Like I can't accomplish anything unless I do it as the like, oh, well, I've got an idea. I'm just going to go do it and I'll just figure it out. And so I embrace that. And I see that like as a relevant means of getting things done. Do you have that perspective and see like, you know what, I've been able to create this sort of body doing it that way? Or you know, I'm not asking you to get any more vulnerable than you'd like to be, or is there still some party that's like, you know, I really should get my shit together and like get a degree or like...
No, I'm totally happy. I think you gain confidence as you start figuring things out throughout your life, right? And I came from a little farm town country girl to doing some really cool shit. And my sort of motto through my whole life is fake it till you make it, right? Like pretend like you belong there until you do. And ask lots of questions. People are happy to help you if you ask questions. And I ask so many questions. And I feel like not just with art, but every aspect of my life, I've been able, I mean, I've traveled around the world. I've done all these things by myself. And I didn't have a clue. No one knew I was terrified because I looked like I knew what I was doing. I had no idea. I moved to Europe with $300 in my pocket and no home to return to, and was like, I guess I have to figure it out because
Oh, I remember
failure's
that.
not an
Yes.
option, right? So I think when you walk in with that, when I really kicked off my art studio, I was pregnant with my son. And his dad kind of cut bait, and I had no job because I was getting ready to move to India. I didn't even have a place to live. And now I'm like, if I don't sell artwork, my son will starve. So not selling artwork wasn't even an option, right? Like, so you figure it out. And I learned to hustle, and I learned things, and you get doors closed in your face and you hit walls and you're like, well, that didn't work. Let's try another avenue, and failure's not an option. And now I look back, and every time I'm doing like an art festival and some young artist comes up to me and starts asking questions, I will absolutely sit there and answer anything I can. Or if I can't at that moment, give them my card and be like, let's have coffee. I want to give you some advice.
I love that so much. I'm so glad.
It's just, I wish somebody would have done that for me. It was me going, I need to find this stuff out. And no, I don't feel like I need the education. I do think mentors are great if you can find a mentor, or at least somebody you can ask questions to, like, so am I totally screwing myself on this, or am I not? But no, I'm totally figuring out as I go. I'm getting ready to work on another project that I have no experience in, and I'm like, surely I can figure this out, right?
I'm so glad to hear that, though. I'm so glad, because it was just, I'll be honest, it was so dismaying to me to hear, like, what do you mean you were like, I want to hide this? Like, so I'm just, that is just very encouraging information. I really hope people can take in and like, listen, you didn't have necessarily all the tools, but you worked with the tools you had and you were able to create something out of it. And I would say, would you agree, like, in kind of in the way that worked best for you, right? Like, it kind of seems to me that way, that you got to have the experience you want, maybe not everyone, but in general, experiences you wanted to have and a career you wanted to have the way you wanted to have it. Would that
Yeah,
be fair?
absolutely. Absolutely. And, I will say I talked to a friend who had a master's in art, and over the 10 years that I knew her, she's passed away, but in the 10 years that I knew her, her art never changed. It was like almost every painting was exactly the same. And mine had changed so much. And I remember her sitting down one day and saying, I envy you. And I'm like, what? She had a master's in art and MFA. And she said, I have too many rules in my head.
Yeah.
I can't I
Yeah.
can't just let go anymore. I can't learn new things because I'm told that's wrong. And she's like, you were fearless. You just jump in there. And I'm like, because I don't know better. Because no one
Right.
told me it was wrong. I don't
Right.
know. And therefore, I don't want to know. Like I want to go play and have fun and enjoy it. And I think she lost the spark for it. And I saw that a lot with people that had MFAs that I would talk to at the residencies, and they just lost the love for it. And I didn't want to do that. So I'm always recreating it. I'm always creating new. I'm always knocking down new doors. I want to see where it'll go. I want to see what I can do.
I mean, I'm very biased in that I love that answer because I'm also someone who's like, but I just also, so yes, I'm biased in loving that answer because I'm also somebody who's kind of like, I didn't have this whatever education and I just kind of like doing my own thing. But I also think there's a lot of other people out there who are maybe even afraid to even try because they don't have the pedigree. And I really hope that they just hear that, like, no, you can literally hang in galleries. You can literally create murals for people. You can literally go on art residencies around the world on not having the right language or the right in huge quotation marks. So thank you for sharing that. I did want to touch just really quickly. One thing that's always a favorite topic of mine is spirituality or nature and its connection to art. And so I would love your take. Do you feel like you've got, any sort of spiritual connection or nature connection in your art? Yes, no.
Absolutely. I would say most of my art is nature inspired. Like you are a huge hiker. I'm not as good as you, but I am a huge hiker. Like
Well,
I
you're not
love
going to put that
the
qualifier. We just had a whole conversation about not having those kind of qualifiers.
Okay, I'm not running 100-mile racers uphill. I'm not doing that. But
Neither am I.
I do love nature. It's where I draw most of my inspirations. I do take my phone on my hikes because sometimes when I'm short of air is when I get the best ideas and I'm like, oh, I need to write this down because I'll forget when I get back. That's where the ideas come. I'm tuned into nature. I'm kind of unplugged from the rest of the world. I would create in nature if it weren't 130 degrees outside all the damn time right now. Like I love being outside. I absolutely think nature plays a huge role in my art. And I think anybody who looks at it can tell that. And I've always said, I mean, I'm also a yoga therapist and have done a lot of work with meditation. And for me, art is very meditative. I can completely get lost in it. People, they don't get that. And I'm like, I don't think like that, or it's not that I don't think, it's that I'm watching. So the goal with meditation isn't to turn your mind off, but it's to watch the thoughts and not play a part in them, right? Like
Right.
just to
Not get
watch them.
attached. Not like do
Yes,
this with all the
yes.
stuff.
And that's exactly what I'm doing with art. Like when I get really crabby or I'm having a really shitty time, my husband's like, maybe you should go spend some time in the art studio because he knows that's my happy
And not
place and
with
that's my
me.
right? That's the calming place. And I come out and I'm like a different person. And I'm just like, because that's what I've done. I've unattached from all of the baggage and all of the crap going on. And I can sit there and I paint. And there's so many times I've got done with a painting and went, how did I do that? Like I honest to God don't know if I could replicate it because I'm not sure exactly how I did it. I sort of call it the zone, right? Like you just let
Absolutely.
spirit or whatever take over the source and it just happens and I'm like, that's so cool. How'd I do that? I don't know. And so yeah, I think spiritually I'm very connected to my art. Definitely nature. I mean, that is such a huge factor. Nature keeps me sane.
Would you
And a
say just
lot of my work.
because you've seen like interacted with a lot of artists through residencies and through these things, just your take, do you think that nature inspires a lot of art, or do you see people being inspired by a lot of different things?
It's probably a genuine split. I
Okay.
think there are a lot of us who are inspired by nature. I've met people who had never set foot in nature. And I'll be honest, many times I don't understand their art or I'm
Right.
not connected to it
Right.
because many times it's very like electronic and sterile and what I would call sterile, and it doesn't have that organic element to it that I am attracted to. And I think you can many times look at someone's art and see if they're a nature person, right? Like
Oh,
maybe not everybody, but for
yeah.
sure I can see people who are like, you've been in the lab a long time. Maybe you should go hug a tree. I mean, you can definitely tell the difference. So I think people, I've been around sound artists and I never got sound art, but we'd be walking down the street and they're seeing and hearing things that it's beyond my perspective, right? But like
Yeah.
they're just inspired a different way. So
Okay, that's very fair. That's and I think because everybody, let's be honest, everybody I'm talking to is people that I've um, because I'm so inspired by nature. Like the people I'm talking
you're
to and
drawn to
bringing
those
in are people
people. Yeah.
I'm connected to because they also have a nature element. So I think you know what, I need to go find a sound artist and get them on this show so that they can
Yeah.
explain because it's not, to your point, it's not something that I initially connect with. So
Right.
that's a really great point. Thank you for that. And then we are getting close to the end. Thank you for your time. But as always, I want to end with what is your favorite piece of garbage advice that you've gotten? Because it just makes me smile so much when I hear people.
For artists, don't pay to hang your work.
Okay.
I don't pay to hang your work. I hate, hate, hate. I've seen this over the years. I did it. I felt there are so many people out there willing to charge artists to make money off of artists, and they're making money off your hope. There's businesses that will pay to hang your work, and then there's businesses that will charge you to decorate their walls with your work. Don't pay for it. I see it all the time. There is an organization that I know of that will reach out to artists, like cold call them. I fell victim to it in the beginning, and they're like, oh, for X amount of dollars, we'll have this huge exhibit. And then what happened was they were like, oh, and you have to sell tickets to all your friends. And I'm like, wait, what? There's so many people looking to exploit artists, and it pisses me off. So don't pay people to hang your work. You will find places. Now, granted, if it's a festival, if it's, an art fair, of course, you have to pay for booth space, that sort of thing.
Right. That's not what you're talking about. You're talking about like exhibition or a gallery or anything where you're showing. Like the art festival, like you're trying to sell the work here. Whereas...
Yeah. But I mean, I remember early on coffee shops, and they're like $50 a month you can hang on our walls, or $150 a month you can hang on our walls. And those are, they're trying to be a vanity gallery, and vanity galleries have come close to going extinct for that reason. They are charging the artist, and that's not fair. And I think it's because artists are so desperate to get their name out there. And so there's lots of places you can go. And if I've walked into more restaurants and coffee shops when I was starting out, and I'm like, hey, you need an artist? Yeah, you have some art? Like, they're excited. So the opportunities are there. You don't need to pay for them. And that's really sort of my garbage advice, if you will. Every time I hear some artist and they're like, I'm going to pay, I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, no. So I think that's my big advice for artists.
Listen to Anastacia. She has been there. She knows what she's talking about.
I've done it. Learn from my mistakes.
Well, thank you, Anastacia. This has been such a fun, enlightening time sitting down. Thank you for being so generous with your advice and your experience. And I really think that you've kind of opened up a door for anybody listening to this to be less afraid to pursue art. So I can't thank you enough for your time. Remember, Anastacia Drake, there's a C in there. You can also find her on Instagram and see her beautiful flower girls, which are incredible. Like, they're my favorite. They're my favorite. Anything else before we kind of say goodbye? Any last things?
Last piece of garbage advice: don't listen to them when they tell you no. Do it your way. Amen. Figure it out. Do it your way.
Amen. Thank you, Anastacia. Bye, everybody.